All right. Can you see it and can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
All good.
So welcome everybody, and thank you very much for having us here. It is such a pleasure, and this one is a follow-up to the Student Affairs Committee to support faculty. So we're here to ensure that we can be good partners and empower each other. And the title of this workshop is going to be UC San Diego Health and Wellbeing Overview. And I will be explaining a little bit about it. My name is Reina Juarez. I am the Director of Counseling and Psychological Services. And then two of my most esteemed colleagues, Dr. Tiffany O'Mara is going to follow, and she's going to be talking about all the interconnections of counseling and psychological services with student health and well-being and the community. And Dr. Christina Lambert is going to address graduate students and professional school students. So I want to really thank our Dean de la Coleta for facilitating this for all of us. So thank you very, very much. Having said that, I want to start by sharing with you what the cluster of student health and well-being is. We used to reside in student affairs, but probably 3 or 4 years ago, we were moved to UC San Diego Health, which is comprised of the medical centers, the clinics, the medical school, pharmacy, health sciences. And that was an interesting move, but it was one of the wisest things that could be done because it increases our resources, not only within UC San Diego Health, but in the UC San Diego community immensely. Now, our cluster reports directly to the CEO, Patty Mason, of the medical centers, and Tom Moore, that is the medical director of the system. And here we have a very strong dotted line to student affairs and academic affairs. And in student affairs, we work closely with the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Alison Sutherland. And that is such a privilege because what is happening to us is that all our work takes place on campus and is dedicated to the students. So it's very important that even when we report to UC San Diego Health, that it is understood that we are here for the service of the campus community. UC San Diego Health is a very vast system, and they totally empower us to do the work that needs to be done on campus. So a student health and well-being cluster, as you may know, is composed of student health services, which is very busy right now, taking care of the students and addressing the COVID pandemic. And they have been doing a wonderful job in keeping us all safe and empowering us. It is the place where CAPS works very closely with them because sometimes, as you know, mental conditions manifest with physical conditions because body and mind are interconnected. And in many cultures and in many groups, it is easier to talk about having stomach aches or having tensions on the shoulders or migraine headaches or physical conditions. And we refer in both ways. But for us, it's very important because sometimes I might have a student that has a lot of anxiety and I need to rule out a thyroid disorder, for instance, or somebody that is very down in energy and vigor. I need to know if that person might have anemia, for instance. So we can refer our students to have a physical exam and rule out physical causes for what might appear to be a mental condition. So student health services is straightforward. Our other partner is health promotion services. And health promotion services is going to be highlighted in the presentation of Dr. Christina, of Dr. Tiffany O'Mara, because we work very closely in programming and especially in launching our Tritons Flourish campaigns that hopefully is going to be adopted system-wide. And finally, we have CAPS, and CAPS it is very essential in promoting the mental health. So here in this slide, you can see our model, which is a community psychology systems approach, which means that we are embedded all over campus in student affairs, academic affairs, and we work very closely with the deans of student affairs, the provost, academic advising, with faculty, staff, administrator, you name it, and the key units that are very important for the functioning of our students, such as financial aid, the Office of a Student with Disability, that are very close to academics also. So when we address the needs of the campus community, we work as a team, because if you look at this pyramid, we had population health, and that's where health promotion services they are our partners, so that we can engage in health promotion, mental health promotion at the campus-wide level. Counseling and psychological services focus on the mental health and well-being of the students. And we provide services where a reasonable condition will respond to it. And when we have to send a student like to a hospital for hospitalization, we work very closely what is called college mental health program from the Department of Psychiatry. And so any time that one of our students go to the emergency department, or later on they are hospitalized, then we have college mental health following them very closely. So that partnership with the Department of Psychiatry is very important to us. So as you can hear me state, CAPS is the leading unit on campus that delivers the mental health services. We are 100% for the service of the students, and they are the ones who pay for us. So I always tell them that our salaries, even the chair that I'm sitting on, everything that is around us is through the student services fees. And therefore, when we work with faculty in consultation model, is to be able to address issues that pertain to the students. Fortunately, we have the faculty and staff assistant program that specializes in delivering the services for faculty and staff. One important thing that I need you to know is that at CAPS, our model of delivering services, psychotherapy, is called brief intermittent psychotherapy model. And what that means is that if somebody comes with anxiety or depression, we are going to use the latest form of psychotherapies, and sometimes can be an integration that is tailored specifically for the need of the students. And it could be an integration of cognitive behavioral therapy with dialectic behavioral therapy, with interpersonal therapy, et cetera, and all of these are state of the art, but the beauty of them is that they are brief psychotherapies where a student should respond within 5 sessions, and they go all the way to 10 to 12 sessions to complete a full course of psychotherapy. So suppose that I have a student and they get better after 5 sessions and they don't need any more, fantastic. I'll be here to continue to touch bases with the student as new vicissitudes of life impinge of them. And that's what is called intermittent model, because suppose that they arrive, they are having adjustment problems, they begin to work with me, and they adjust, and now they are feeling belonging and fitting well in the university. But later on, they explore, they fall in love, they have a broken heart, and they feel that their world has ended and crumbled. Then that would be a time when they can come and visit with me again. Other times, it could be somebody in the family that is very ill. It might be something that of other nature, like having challenges academically at any point. So I hope that this explanation illustrates the intermittent psychotherapy model. So as a director and personally as a psychotherapist, once I begin to work with a student, I like to see them until they graduate. But of course, if the student is beyond the scope of counseling and psychological services, we have a referral center that I'll be talking about in a little bit. So we need all of you. One of my biggest desires is to have solid, strong relationships with faculty, because at the end, you are the ones who see the students in your classrooms. Of course, now it's the virtual classroom. And in our basic structure, we stand in 5 pillars, and one is surveillance, and that's where you play a very important role for us, because we need to take the pulse. What are the trends? What are the needs of the student? What is working? What is not working? How can we improve our services through this surveillance? We do the needs assessment. Then through prevention, we try to reach early before something even becomes a disorder. Then we have a plethora of interventions. And to complement ourselves, we have a training program because we want to train the future psychologists, mental health providers that will be delivering services on college campuses. And we engage in self-assessment, and we always strive for quality improvement. So here is our staff, and I want you to know that we have 25 psychologists, 4 licensed clinical social workers, 3 psychiatrists, 7 postdoctoral residents. We just added 1 for the 7th college that is coming up, and 4 administrative support. You might have heard that sometimes there is a long wait. Unfortunately, 3 weeks or 5 weeks is the maximum wait that we have had, but in the community, some of the rumors have stated 3 weeks become 3 months, 5 weeks become 5 months. But when we have a wait, it's very challenging for us because we're doing everything that we can, and we do not have the right ratio of staffing, because according to our accrediting body, that is the International Accreditation for Counseling Services, the ideal ratio would be 1 mental health provider for 1,000 students. And currently our ratio is very close, we're almost there, but it is 1 per 1,367 students. And the way how we are staffed would be for a population of 29,000 students. And as you know, the fall of 2019, there were like 39,000 students enrolled on campus. So here is a listing of CAP services. We provide clinical counseling services, and we have a referral center that is specifically for students that are beyond our scope. And these are the ones that need intensive care, specialized care, that come with long and complicated mental disorders. And it is a wonderful thing that now we have therapies and medications and interventions that facilitate for these students to come to campus. But some of them will be rotating in and out the hospital. Some of them will need to have a team that will have to work closely with them also. But when we refer students out, we are also available for consultation, for bridge work, which is very important, and we can't always be in communication as it is needed. Part of the presentation today is going to be on mental health promotion and preventive outreach, because as you know, 1 ounce of prevention is wiser than when we have escalating situation. And we like early intervention, and early intervention is part of that surveillance. It's identifying clusters of students, group of students that might be at higher risk. So we have the LGBTQ population, we have the undocumented students, the first generation student, transfer students. So we bring mental health providers with expertise with this student population so that we can serve them better. And we are here to provide consultations for faculty, and that is a delight. So please never hesitate to call us. There is always a mental health provider on call that will be able to take your calls. And we have then, as I said, the post-residential program and a wellness peer education programs. We engage in research, predictive analytics, and clinical outcomes to see if our services are working, and we must have quality improvement and compliance as part of our work. I already mentioned that we work very closely with college mental health programs from the Department of Psychiatry for the more severe conditions and post-hospitalization follow-up. And Tiffany O'Mara is going to talk more about the iFlourish platform. That is a wonderful resource for the students. I tell them that it's like carrying me with them in their computer, in their laptop. When I work with them, I give them assignments from the iFlourish platforms. And those are really committed followers. And it is an amazing resource that you will hear more about it. Also, I want you to know that through the CHIP insurance, Anthem, that is the organization that provides some of the backup, they have something called Live Health Online, and that is UC approved telemental health providers. At this point, we're not referring to them because we are having plenty of televisit, as you know, with remote learning and with physical distancing and the staying at home orders. All of the CAS providers are now able to deliver televisits. CAP central office is open, so as I am talking to you, I am talking from our central office, because we are open to cover if any special emergency happen, if there is one of the students that lives on campus that has a breakdown and needs to be hospitalized, I want to be here to be able to facilitate the care of these students. And we work very closely with the campus police, because sometimes if it is a 5150 that is a mandated hospitalization, we have to do it through the campus police, and they help us with the transportation of the students to the Hillcrest unit of UC San Diego Health, that is the inpatient for students that might need to be hospitalized because of a mental disorder. I also want you to know that we don't leave our students alone, because we have a line that is in operation after hours. And the beauty about it is that you could call it also. If you need consultation at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can call our phone number 534-3755 and select option 2. And there will be somebody answering the phone. And we have CAPS on-call providers 24/7. So we are always available to assist. And as I said, we refer out also students that do not fall within our scope of services. And unfortunately, in the fall, there were big challenges because our external providers also had diminished access. But I think that all of that has improved. So in terms of utilization, as you can see—
Sorry, Reina?
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could I ask a question from a couple slides back before I forget it?
Okay. Which
You
one
don't need
was
to.
it?
You don't need to go back. I wanted.
Oh,
I'm sorry to interrupt again. I just wanted to ask about the resource question. So you had said that we were staffed now for a campus of 29,000 students,
yes.
and so we're moving in the right direction. That's good to hear.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could say whether there continues to be positive direction on that trajectory, or whether things are looking bad. And I appreciate that, of course, we're going into a crisis. And
I am so grateful that you asked this question. To tell you the truth, we were heading to a brilliant future because, as you know, the chancellor has empowered us. They gave us seed monies to hire more staff, and we were preparing for the move to 7th College and to graduate housing. And you know that in 2023, there is the Triton Pavilion move where all of our cluster will be under the same roof. And the students were gearing up for a student fee referendum that they were very enthusiastic about. But now with COVID and all the current situations, the financial stressors, I really do not know what is going to happen. But I want you to know that the desire, the goodwill, the passion, the enthusiasm has been fully there. But I do understand, we were talking earlier about the financial hardships that are happening around the world, you know, in the state of California, and our students are also having tremendous hardship because many of their families have lost jobs, and we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this is only a temporary glitch, and I will keep you informed about how we move in this direction.
perfect. Thank you so much, Reina.
So I really appreciate that question, because our staffing has now been stagnated. Like here, we have a statistic like for the last academic year, and we're collecting them for 2019, 2020. And if you notice, in 2018, we already have 38,000 students. And when the number of students climbed to 39, we should have had automatically, I'd say automatically, it's my wishful thinking, one more mental health providers. But instead, we are still at 29, and hopefully everything will work in the future. I want you to see that we see 12% of the student population, they cross our threshold. And if we were to include all the ones that we see in a preventive outreach, it would be huge. But these 12% are the ones who come for psychotherapy, for mental health counseling. And here you see that our units of service has been increasing consistently through the years. And one thing that I want to leave you with before I wrap up and conclude my segment is to share student satisfaction with you, our statistic, which is part of our statistic count and data. So fortunately, we have 98% of the student indicates that CAP is a valuable student services, and 96% will recommend it to a friend, which is very hard moving for me, because that's very important for us. We are here dedicated, totally committed, and extending ourselves and taking big risks to be of service to the students. Then for outreach and program evaluation, this one is very important, because 97% shares that they are satisfied with the program, but 96% indicate that they envision their well-being will improve from attending the program. Because that's important, that when students come to see us, they can take something with them that they will be able to practice, because it is all about skill building and integration in our life to continue to grow and develop as human beings. So thank you for listening. This was part of my segment. I close my screen sharing and I pass it on to Dr. Tiffany Omer.
Thank you, Reina. And I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so as Reina said, I'm Tiffany O'Mara, and I am the manager of our preventative programming at CAPS. And so as Reina mentioned, a big part of our services is reaching out to students before they develop mental health symptoms and that they need to come in for a counseling appointment. We try to reach students before they get to that spot. So we reach out to thousands and thousands of students every year, and we focus on skill building. So helping them learn to improve stress management, being able to cope with emotions, being able to increase well-being, and we use strength-based programs to do this. We also work a lot with partners across campus. So Reina mentioned that we work a lot with health promotion services in our cluster. So for example, some of our programs are hosted at the Zone, which is under health promotion services. And we also have a weekly newsletter that goes out that talks about all of our cluster programs that are going on that week. And then we work together to provide workshops and outreach. We also have a lot of partners across campus, for example, recreation, that we do a lot of workshops with and programs with. So I wanted to highlight some of our programs that we have at CAPS. And so one of these is our daily drop-in workshops. And so these are workshops that are available every single day. So every day a student can find a workshop going on that is free and there's no wait. So even when Reina mentioned there is a wait for maybe a first individual appointment, but they can come to these workshops and learn skills to help already before they even get to that first appointment. And these are open to all UCSD students because they're skill-based programs. They really can be useful for all students, not just the students that are CAPS clients. And then another one of our programs is our community open forums. And these are forums that, finding a place of belonging and finding a place where you can feel like you're a valued member of a group is really important. Many students can experience isolation or loneliness, especially during this quarter. So one thing that's really exciting is both our daily drop-in workshops and also our community open forums are offered virtually this quarter. And so these are identity-based spaces where students can meet with a CAPS psychologist and also students that they can relate to. They can have meaningful conversations about relevant issues of the day, and they can find support from. So this is part of our effort to help build community and help build a sense of belonging. Raina mentioned our iFlourish program, and this was something that we started a couple years ago, even before everything else went virtual. We went virtual by offering these online self-improvement programs, and the purpose behind this was try to increase access to mental health services. So not all students, because of stigma or some other reason, will walk into CAPS through traditional means. So we wanted to make something available where online they can learn valuable skills. So similar interventions that they would learn from sitting one-on-one with a psychologist. So we've got Mind Well You program, which helps teach students about mindfulness. And we have Well Track, which helps them learn about patterns of their mood. And then our TAO program, Therapy Assisted Online, they're going to be learning a lot of the same strategies that they would from a therapist on how to reduce depression, reduce anxiety, and even how to build communication and relationship skills. So these are exclusively for UCSD students. And then I also wanted to talk a bit about how, as faculty, we can help to provide support for students. And so to start off with, I just want to recognize that those of you who are here today, are already faculty who are going above and beyond. And I just want to start by thanking you for the support that you provide to students. We understand how overwhelming that it must be to be a faculty member, to have your research, to have everything that you have to do to prepare for your classes that you have to teach, the graduate students that you supervise, and then also responding to students when they're in crisis or they're having concerns. And that's got to be so overwhelming on top of everything else that you're doing. How do I provide support and get the student connected to resources? And with everything being virtual this quarter, that can make it seem even more difficult. And so, we wanted to be able to reassure you that you do not need to fix the students' problems. You're not expected to address their mental health. But we wanted to provide you something today that you would be able to feel like you've learned some skills, that you can be able to provide the students support to be able to help to contain that anxiety. And you are not expected to be a counselor, but we're looking at this as an opportunity for how you can use some strategies to help be able to provide support without having to save the student. So in thinking about this, what would be a helpful way for a faculty member to provide support? We've broken it up into 4 steps that are going to be easy to implement. And each of these steps, if you're looking at it, you might be thinking, well, this kind of seems like common sense. But what we find is that when we're faced with emotion in a moment, it can be easy to want to jump to problem solving. And that's not necessarily going to be helpful in that moment when someone's coming to us expressing concerns. And so these skills that we're going to be talking about today are things that are going to be easy and effective in responding to students. Some of you, as we're going over these tools, may feel like you already have some experience or knowledge with some of these skills. And that will be great because you're going to find that really useful in talking with students. And each one of these skills is easy on its own. Each step is very easy, but when we put them all together, it becomes like these pearls of wisdom that can help provide support and help reduce that anxiety for students. So I want to be able to talk about each of these. The first is listening with awareness. So students tell me all the time how hard that it is to talk to their professor about what's going on in their life. And so if a student is coming to you and wanting to talk about a trouble that they're having academically or something that's going on in their life, that's already going to be anxiety provoking, likely for them. And so just the fact that you're even giving them space to be able to have this conversation, just that in itself is going to be something that's going to be really helpful and valuable for the student. And when you're listening to them, it can help to be aware of what are some common anxious and depressed mindsets that students might be coming in with. So, this can happen to all of us. When we're under increased stress, we might be feeling anxious or sad. Our mood can impact our patterns of thinking. And we call that cognitive distortions or unhelpful thinking patterns. And the problem for some students is that they can get stuck in these patterns of thinking. One of the most common patterns of thinking is catastrophic thinking. So this is when you think that everything's going to turn into the worst case scenario. So our brain has that negative bias. So, thinking about what's the worst thing that's happening right now, or what's the worst thing that might be happening in the future. So it's things like, I know that I'm going to get on academic probation this quarter. Or if I don't pass this exam, I'm not going to be able to get into medical school. Also, another pattern thinking is emotional reasoning. So emotional reasoning is when you feel a very strong emotion and it's followed by a thought or a belief that must be true. So for example, I'm feeling really embarrassed, so I must be an idiot. Or I'm feeling really vulnerable and uncertain in class, so I must be stupid. So that's another type of thinking that students might be coming in with. As educators, you are probably already familiar with the difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. So fixed mindset, believing that ability is static, whereas growth mindset believes that ability is something that can grow with persistence and hard work and effort. And so students that might be coming in to your office with a fixed mindset, if they're experiencing some kind of challenge, they might start to feel overwhelmed and hopeless. And they might think that putting in any effort is going to be useless. So they might come already wanting to give up. With social anxiety, that's another type of anxiety that students have. We have many students at UCSD that experience social anxiety. That's one of my areas of interest. I run our Building Social Confidence groups, and these groups, we've always got interest list for these groups. The way that this impacts students academically is that it makes it really difficult for them to participate in class. It makes it hard for them to go to office hours with their professor or their TA. It might make it hard for them to work in small groups with students, to be able to ask questions that they need to. And it's been interesting to talk with students this quarter with everything going virtual, because it's making it even harder for them. Before, if they might be sitting in a class, they can at least, have people around them and everyone's looking forward and looking at the professor. But now they're faced with these Zoom platforms where they're having to not only look at their professor, but they're having to look at themselves as well. And that's bringing up a lot of anxiety for a lot of students. Before it was, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to say this right? And now it's, am I going to be able to say this right? And how does my hair look? And how do I look while I'm saying it? They also worry about, are other students looking at them? Are other students making judgments about them? And so this has been a very common problem. Some things, just as a side note, that professors can do that can help with that. One is that they can allow students to turn off their screen or ask questions via chat. Because it's not just about avoidance, it's about taking away that distraction of them wondering about how they're coming across it, so that they can instead focus on the professor and the content that's being taught. Also, to think about going to a Zoom appointment where they've got to be one-on-one and ask a professor a question is really intimidating. So if professors or TAs can incentivize office hours. So for example, during office hours, we're going to be discussing this. I'm going to be going into more depth in this one area or explaining this, or we're going to be talking about how this is relevant to the real world. Then having those discussions, something planned to talk about, might make it a little bit easier for them to go. And then once they're there, they can see it's not as bad as they think, and then they can start participating. Also, what's been really helpful for students is when professors will talk about the challenges that they've been having with the online platform. If you could talk about some of the challenges and difficulties that you're experiencing, just that can feel really validating for students and help to relieve some of their anxiety and even help feel a little bit connected to you. So those are some of what to expect for some of what students might be experiencing and what to just keep an ear out for. And then the second step is empathic responding. And so this is when you listen to what they're saying and listen to what feeling it is that they are expressing, and then repeat back what you've been hearing. Now, I want to show a little video because this seems easy. However, when we are in the moment and our anxiety can rise, it's really easy to want to go straight to problem solving. And I think that this video helps to highlight that.
Tiffany, may I ask you a question?
Sure, sure.
I have to go back because you mentioned all these workshops that meet weekly. And first of all, how well is the word getting out? Are these being used? Is there any differentiation between graduate and undergraduate populations using them?
Really great question. So I'll address the first one. So yes, we are continuing to market these through lots of different platforms. We have social media that we're sending out, and we also cross-promote with other groups across campus. So a lot of students are connected through social media. And so we're promoting our programs, like Recreation might be promoting our programs, the International Students Programs Office might be promoting our programs, and then we're also helping to promote their programs. The thing that's exciting is that I'm really looking at this quarter as an opportunity to hope to even increase attendance. I mentioned before that sometimes when it's in person, students can get anxious about attending, but we had our very first daily drop-in workshop on Monday of week 1 of classes, and we had 13 students attend, which I think was really great. In the weeks after that, for that particular class, there have been 18 to 20 students attending. And so, yeah, we've had some good attendance. And then we have daily drop-in workshops are for everybody, but our open community forums, we have some that are open to everybody, all students, and then some that are just focused particularly for graduate and professional school students. And I'm going to leave that because Dr. Lambert is going to be talking more about that in just a few minutes.
May I ask, just interject here? I mean, these are wonderful services that you're offering, but I'm sure the great majority of students aren't really aware of it. They may be aware of CAP because they've heard about CAP, but it would seem to me that this kind of services could even be linked to syllabuses, just like academic integrity is.
That would be amazing if we could get faculty to be able to provide some kind of link about our Triton's Flourish programming, our preventative programming. I love that idea, and if faculty were willing to do that, I would love to be able to work with you on that. We have a lot of students right now trying to promote awareness of this, so I think it's increasing, but I think that you're right. I think that still a lot of students don't know. And the students who have attended, they'll report back to me and say, oh my gosh, that relaxation training was so useful and I've been using it every day. So, these are state-of-the-art workshops by professional experts that I think that students would really find valuable if they could know more about it.
Tiffany, this is Christina. I think Mark had a great idea, and it would be very easy for me to send a message to the faculty in Arts and Humanities, inviting them to consider to put a statement in their syllabus. Could you send me the link so I can have that and send it on?
Absolutely, I will, and thank you so much. I am very full of gratitude for that. We have an entire Triton's Flourish webpage right now that talks about other resources for how to cope with stress during difficult times. So I'll send you the link to the website and also our preventative resources. So thank you so much. All right, so let me move on to show you this quick video. It's very cute, but I think it gets across the point very well about how to provide an empathic response.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on?
All right. So I love that video because I just think that, you know, if any of you, maybe you've had this experience where you've had a problem and you've tried to go to a friend or a family member and talk with them about that problem, and they try to just jump straight into problem solving. One of the things that people want the most and desire the most is to feel heard and to feel validated. And so when a student is coming to us, just to be able to, you know, reflect back what it is that they're experiencing can really be helpful in calming them. What's interesting, this is the Chinese character for listen. You see that it's broken up into many components. Ear is to hear. King is to listen to them as if they were king. The number 10 and I is observing them as if you had 10 eyes. Number 1 is to focus individually on that person, and heart is to listen with your heart. So an example that would be a response that you could provide, so many things are happening. I have midterms, I'm living at home now, and my family is always yelling. I have no quiet place to work, and I'm worried because there's no summer internships available. And a faculty member could respond, wow, it sounds like you're feeling really overwhelmed by all the things going on. You've got academics, family, worry about the future. It sounds like it's really hard for you right now. And, you know, we're not expecting you to be a counselor, but just being able to provide a kind word can go a really long way in providing them support. I mentioned that a lot of our preventative programming is strength-based. And so one of the things that we do when we work with students when they're experiencing a difficult time is to try to get them in touch with one of their strengths. And so, you know, asking students, what are some of your strengths in academics? And sometimes they'll have difficulty when they're having problems in academics, identifying one of their strengths. So you can ask them, well, what are some strengths in other aspects of your life? One thing that can be helpful is asking them about a time that they succeeded in the past. Because for many students, there's been something that they've had that they've overcome to get here at UCSD. Just the fact that they're here at UCSD shows that they've been through difficulties and they've come out because of some kind of strength. And that could be an internal strength that they have, or it can be a resource, something cultural, something from their family, some kind of support that they received that helped them to succeed. And so another strategy that's useful, that's suggested by Martin Seligman, who is one of the leading researchers in the field of positive psychology, is when you're faced with a problem that you're not quite sure how to resolve, think about one of your strengths and think, how can you apply that to the current situation? So for example, maybe one of my strengths is that I am good at connecting with people. And then how might I be able to apply that strength to the difficulty that I'm having understanding the content in my class right now? So just having them think about that, and just even the fact that they're there seeing you and asking for help, that in itself is a strength. And then finally, the fourth step is connecting them to resources. So, connecting them to CAPS is obviously a great place to send a student, but there's lots of resources that could be a great match for the student. So CARET SARC, we mentioned health promotion services and the zone, financial aid, Office of Students with Disabilities, Center for Ethics and Spirituality. There's lots of different resources that might be helpful for students. So thinking about, with this situation, what would be the most helpful resource to point them in the direction? And you only have to think of one, because if you can get them connected to one, we are all working as partners and we all help each other. If I'm seeing a student that has a legal need, I send them to Student Legal Services. If I see a student with basic needs issues, then I send them to the hub. So we're all working together to help the students. So just saying something simple like, I'm concerned about you and I want you to get connected to support can be helpful. So just to summarize, listen with awareness, provide some kind of empathic response. I'm sorry that you're going through this difficult time, reassuring them, make a comment on their strength or your belief that they can get through this, and then maybe connecting them to a resource. So that is it for my section. And I will pass it along to Christina.
May I ask one last question?
Sure.
You've mentioned all these offices. So I've noticed, especially in our graduate community in music, that there's a lot of stress and problems that are really based on economic issues because of the virus, work that's been lost, and there's not anything really in place. There is no safety net that I've been aware of that I can even steer my students to. We're kind of waiting for some sort of policy to be put into effect. As like to say, I'm going to put you in touch with financial aid. Are you in contact with financial aid for some, emergency loans? And I mean, is there anything really? Is there a coordination besides? Is there a direct coordination between your offices?
You mean right now at this time?
Yes.
Okay. Raina, it looks like you wanted to speak to that.
Right. We have a long-standing relationship with financial aid. They are very important to us. And Mark, you are right on target. I want you to know that sometimes I work with students that are so suicidal and desperate, and all they needed was a grant. And financial aid has come to the rescue over and over again, preventing even students from escalating in their major depression or panic into going into the emergency department. So right now they are doing everything that they can. As you know, they have all these financial advisors that are connected to the college. So for faculty, my recommendation would be to also, besides going to financial aid office where they are doing everything that they can right now, I know that they are very closely connected with the Dean of Student Affairs of the colleges, because whatever a door feels comfortable for the student, I call it no run door. Wherever we send the student, we can trust that that student will be advanced to get that right help that they need. So I am glad that you have this awareness, because finances, basic needs are two of the biggest right now for students.
So,
Reina, I think if I may say something too, I think I heard this morning at the meeting with EVC Simmons and deans and provosts about emergency funding related to COVID-19, and VC Alison Sutherland did a presentation about it. So Alison Sutherland is also a resource, Mark, if your students have these needs.
her name again?
This is mostly for undergraduate students. 10% of the sum will be addressed to graduate students. This will not benefit DACA students or international students, but still it's a pretty substantial amount of funding. So if you need more specific information, we can talk offline and I can put you in contact with Alison.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Christina Lambert. And Christina, your sound.
Your mic is muted, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks so much. So it's a pleasure to be with you all here, and thank you for your time and also your dedication. We know that the faculty who show up for this today or who watch this future recording are the faculty who are some of our faculty who are so dedicated and committed to our students. So thank you. All right. Sorry, it's not advancing. Oh, there it goes.
There you go.
Yep, got it. Sorry, thank you. All right, so first of all, in terms of our program for graduate and professional school students, it's called CAPS for GAPS, and it's been something that has been growing and growing over the last few years. I'd say the last 5 years. It's really kind of developed because of all of the advocacy that we've had a lot from students and campus partners to make this something that really has substance and breadth and depth for our graduate and professional school students. And we understand that the complex challenges and demands of the UC San Diego graduate professional school students, the importance of providing a variety of services specifically designed to provide support for the rigorous journey, whether that's a one-year master's program, a many-year doctoral program, or a many-year MD PhD program. And so our specially designated programs for graduate and professional school students can be identified by this CAPS for GAPS logo. Wanted to let you know that we were slated to move into 3 new CAPS satellite offices in Nuevo West this spring. And that is going to happen at some point, but right now we are obviously working remotely. And just wanted to say that again, this is an outgrowth of our collaborative partnership. So GSA was very instrumental in coming to the university saying we really want to have offices specifically for CAPS providers who are serving graduate professional school students, and housing and dining hospitality have been wonderful in implementing the creation of these 3 new offices within the new grad housing that has just opened. We also have forums, as Tiffany was talking about, all of the forums and workshops that we offer. Our graduate students are welcome to all of those other offerings that are open to undergraduates as well, but we do have some additional offerings that are specific for our graduate and professional school students. So these are drop-in forums. These are a few of our examples of a general support forum, a forum for students of color who are graduate and professional school students, graduate women in science and engineering. And we have a new interpersonal process group that has just been launched this quarter and is very successful. Dr. Chang Cafaro has already put together a very strong group that is coming every week and really getting a lot of benefit. Let's Talk is another offering that's new this quarter. We've had other Let's Talk services. This is a new particular one for graduate division. And I'm the one who's offering this particular service. my colleagues offer Let's Talk at School of Medicine and Pharmacy and Jacobs School of Engineering. And this is an informal support, so it's not a clinical service, and it is by sign up. And every spot was signed up for this week, and every spot is already signed up for next week. And so these are brief conversations where students can come in and get some support around issues such as stress, worry, sleep, motivation, focus, recovering from setbacks, work life changes, relationships, etc. And then we can also help them connect with our CAPS clinical services if that is the indicated kind of follow-up for that student. We also want to let you know that CAPS services are available in foreign languages. We understand that we have very important international student population on our campus, and that providing services to them, both clinical services and outreach services in other languages, is really valuable and reduces barriers to service. So those are the current languages this quarter. We get new postdocs not just this quarter, this academic year, we get new postdocs every year. And so the language offerings can change from year to year, but this is our current list of language offerings that students can request when seeking services at CAPS. And this Alone Together is just launching next week by Dr. Sophia Chang. And as you can see, it's going to be offered in both English and Mandarin, and it's a collaboration between CAPS and ISPO. And so you saw this tree earlier, and we have these same collaborations across campus with a lot of our partners that serve graduate and professional school students. I just highlighted some of the ones that we do most of our collaboration with for the graduate professional school students particularly. And that's, there's a number of different meetings that are hosted by graduate division, and we attend those and we get to strategize with other campus partners about how to serve our graduate professional school students more effectively. In terms of graduate division, just to let you know too that we do work with them on programming specifically. So in terms of, that's a new virtual orientation program that's being developed that we are going to be a part of as well. The Questioning Career Workshop Series has been very popular for 15 years, and that's slated again for this coming summer, 2020. And then also we have a new, very exciting initiative in which we are partnering with Grad Division to create Graduate Wellness Associates. And these are going to be 4 graduate students who are going to be supervised and mentored by CAPS in terms of learning how to provide mental health outreach to other graduate and professional school students. So this is a very exciting thing. We're going to be hiring this spring, summer, and launching next fall, 2020. All right, so while all of the services that we provide at CAPS are very popular and well attended, really our clinical services is what most of our students, undergrads and graduate students, seek out and utilize. And I want to just point out that of our students served last year, that 27% of those utilizers were graduate and professional school students. And these are, you can see the areas of which they represent, with 51% coming from graduate division.
Pardon, Christina?
Yes.
This is Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
On that last slide you just showed us, are those numbers numbers of unique users at every step in the pyramid, or are those total visitors?
No, those are unique users.
Thanks.
That's not clinical units, it's unique users. All right, so in terms of kind of what our students presenting with, and I'm guessing that all of you could probably come up with this same list from your own conversations with graduate students in your departments. This list here of things that students present with, almost all of them would be things that would be on our same list if the pandemic was not happening. But certainly the pandemic is exacerbating all of the presentations of these experiences and symptoms that students are struggling with. So what we want to do now is talk a little bit about how all of those fit in with resilience and what challenges resilience, and some strategies for becoming more resilient, but also for supporting graduate and professional school students in being more resilient. So we can see here, this comes from a book that came out in 2018. I've done a number of workshops for graduate students based on the content in this book, and the students are really receptive to it. They find it really helpful. And I, of course, modify it to be appropriate and really targeted and toward our graduate student experience. But one of the things that Dr. Hansen talks about in this book is that we have three basic needs, right? We have a basic need for safety. We have a basic need for satisfaction. This could also be called meaning. And we have a basic need for connection. And this can be to varying degrees per person and per situation. But one of the things that's happening right now is all of these three basic needs are being really challenged by the pandemic, by the implications of the pandemic, by the requirements for the stay-at-home orders and working remotely, etc. So in terms of the impact on safety, we can see that there's a worry about health of self and our loved ones. It can make it difficult to focus on research, writing, and teaching. Financial concerns and our visa concerns can be overwhelming, making it more difficult to plan for the future. Housing and food insecurity can make it difficult to take advantage of academic and career opportunities that arise. In terms of impact on satisfaction, fewer job openings can lead students to doubt their purpose and direction. Job market uncertainty can lend to catastrophic thinking. I'll never get a good job that I like. And suspended or rescinded funding and or job opportunities contribute to dwelling on past choices in unhelpful ways. Impact on connection. Worries about image management can interfere with effective communication with faculty and collaborators. This is always a possibility, but in terms of the pandemic, now that everything is being done virtually and students are trying to figure out new ways to network, this has a whole other layer of challenge around it. Uncertainty about future funding and concerns about limited opportunities can make it even harder for students to ask for support. And struggles to be productive while working remotely, especially with children in the home, can result in avoidance and feelings of failure. So we can see that there's a lot of challenges here going on for everybody, but also for our graduate and professional school students. So in terms of resilience, I'm going to talk about some strategies that help us to be more resilient. And we know that even in tumultuous times, faculty can support graduate and professional school students in building their capacity for advantageous response, effective action, and productive thinking. And here are some of the following strengths I'm going to focus on. There's a lot more in the book and in some of the other presentations that I do. All right, we're going to start with these basics though. Courage. All right, so in terms of courage, there's lots of elements to courage, but one thing that is really important now is encouraging students to seek support, especially if health and safety is at risk. And remember, when we talk about health and safety, these are basic needs. You know, food, housing insecurity, toxic relationships, medical expenses, right? All of these kind of things. So it can be really hard for graduate and professional school students to ask for help because they're worried that asking for help will result in being perceived as weak, which would then result in fewer opportunities in the future. So assuring graduate students that you understand they might need help, that you encourage them to ask for help, and that they will not be penalized for asking for support and assistance. The next one is grit, helping students recall past experiences of resolve, patience, persistence, and fierceness. And what we want to remember is that Tiffany already talked about this, we have experiences of this. And maybe you're helping them just to remember something they've already done in their past life experiences, but maybe you're remembering, do you remember when we had to get that paper out by that deadline and how we worked so hard and we got it done and we got it in, right? Being able to call on your own experiences with that graduate student of their resolve, their patience, their persistence, and fierceness, reminding them that that is in them. Tapping into empathy, and this is really important when interacting with people in general, but graduate and professional school students. This is remembering that we are all human. This common humanity means that we all experience suffering. And when we can think about how other people are suffering, it brings out a compassion in us that helps us to connect more effectively. I actually do this with my graduate students as well. They come in possibly frustrated with a dynamic with a faculty person or a staff person. And when we can get them to a place where they're actually able to empathize with the experience of the faculty member or the staff person, all of a sudden that starts to shift their perspective and help them to respond more effectively and change that dynamic in positive ways. Effective action, mindfulness. So you've probably heard the term mindfulness, very popular. But when I think about this right now in this context, mindfulness is about trying to stay in the present moment, which is really hard right now, right? Because when we think, we spend too much of our brain time thinking about the past, we tend to feel down, depressed. And when we spend too much of our brain time thinking about the future, we tend to get anxious and worried. The more we can stay in this particular moment, usually the more calm and centered and effective and productive we're going to feel. And so I would just encourage faculty to think about how can they support students in being in this current experience of today. What can I do today? What can I do this week? What's going to be effective now? And ways to do that are to meet regularly with students, office hours, if they're done virtually, with setting concrete goals and checking in on the attainment of those goals. I've had some students saying, my advisor says, do you want to meet? Do you need to meet? And I say, oh, not really. And they say, okay. And then we don't meet. And then they're really lost. And I don't mean just lost in terms of the trajectory of their research, although that's a piece of it, but just lost in this moment of how to move forward in an effective way and stay in this present moment. Showing gratitude, expressing appreciation, celebrating successes, very valuable. We know that there's lots of benefits to gratitude for both the person who gives the gratitude and the person who receives the gratitude, that helps us to be more resilient. Generosity, modern altruism, giving without expectation. And in terms of these last ones, productive thinking, how faculty can help. In terms of staying calm and encouraging a calm in a time when it's hard for a lot of people to stay calm, it's helping students to see the threats realistically, not to dismiss them and not to catastrophize and make them bigger than they are. One of the things that faculty can do around this is to provide as much information as possible about things that the students are concerned about, funding issues, the trajectory of their research, what they're hearing about what's happening in the field. Because even though those it might feel like, oh, I don't want to exacerbate their anxiety, it's actually having knowledge allows us to know what the situation is and move forward more effectively. In terms of compassion, modeling compassion and acceptance, not resignation. This does not mean throwing our hands up and saying, I can't do anything. This means saying, this is hard. This is a really hard situation. I accept the situation as it is. And I'm going to think effectively about how I can respond to that. The last one, confidence. And this is something that Tiffany already talked about, but sharing personal experiences of your own struggles, whether that's imposter syndrome or recovering from setbacks, can really help graduate students feel like, okay, it's normal to have these experiences, and be very validating and increase their confidence in navigating the challenges that they're encountering. Okay, so we are going to move into our last segment here. And these are just conversations that we're going to have amongst all of us. And these are practice scenarios. We've got 3 practice scenarios. And so just going to do a really brief recap before we go into the practice scenario, that when a student of concern comes to a faculty or staff member, that they can recommend the student call for an appointment. And we put CAPS there. We put student health services as well, because as Tiffany was saying, there are students who they're more likely to identify with their physical symptoms and maybe feel more comfortable going to student health. So we want to give both if that's appropriate for the situation. Reporting concern to the Triton Concern line when it's indicated. And again, you're going to be getting a whole training on this in May. So I know that there's going to be a lot of follow-up in that particular area of topic. And then you might consult with the student's Dean of Student Affairs for their particular college or for the graduate division. And you might consult with the CAPS urgent care provider. Okay, so here's practice scenario number 1. A first-generation college student, Latinx male, transfer student, attends your virtual office hours, stating that they're feeling very lost and overwhelmed by the new virtual learning format. They tell you that they think they're capable of learning the material, but they're having trouble focusing and absorbing the material during online lectures and assignments. When taking exams, they experience increased heart rate, chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, and their mind goes blank. They feel bad that they're not adapting as well as their peers and feel that they're not going to be able to succeed. They also report being worried about family issues, including parental unemployment due to COVID-19. So what mindsets do you notice could be at play here? What might be an empathetic response sound like? What could be one strength you can observe? Where might you refer this student? So any thoughts that come up for people, anybody who's willing to share with us?
Christine, I wonder if it would be helpful just to go back to the scenario so they can take maybe a picture of it if they'd like to see it at the same time as looking at the questions.
Yeah.
I would say social anxiety.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be social anxiety. It could be panic attacks, being out and around other people, like kind of an agoraphobia experience, fear that they're going to get an attack in a public space. So it could be a panic attack. It could be social phobia with panic attack. Yeah. It's always good too to rule out any physical health causes of these symptoms. And so I think that either way, if you were to send them to student health services, they would assess for a physical health problem, or if you were to refer them to CAPS, either way, we will probably refer to each other. The student health services would refer to CAPS, and CAPS would refer to student health services to rule out any physical health concerns.
I just wanted to make a comment and take advantage of that statement, Tiffany, and it is that CAPS is decentralized, which means that we have staff at the colleges, the student health, OASIS, the global education area, et cetera, so many places. And in cases like this, when students present with heart, chest pain, shortness of breath, I think that it would be a wonderful opportunity for them to go to a student health, because once they are in a student health, they can be connected with Dr. Stephanie Sailo, that is the psychologist that is there. And something very nice is that the students that will stay at student health services are the ones that have very encapsulated conditions. So if they have problems with sleep, she can help with the sleep hygiene. Students that have anxiety, she can help with anxiety. But when the situation is more complicated, then she will send them to CAPS. But there's no wrong door. And that would be maybe an easy door for this student to go, because there is no the stigma also of going to CAPS. They can go to student health and check those symptoms.
So I have a question. So the scenario first line emphasizes that this is a first generation student and this is a Latinx male transfer student. So how would your approach change having that knowledge?
I guess I want to throw that back to the faculty. Are there any?
Well, the first thing that I would make note of is that the new virtual learning format is new for all of us. And there's a big, empathize with that I get it, because I'm having a hard time too, trying to make it work. And then also to try to also say, listen, all the lecture notes, they're all on the website for you to refer to. And don't worry about taking note, copying what's on the board. It's there. Just pay attention of what's not on there. And, just try to take the pressure out of them, taking rigor, trying to copy what's already there, just to follow what's not on the board. And what we've been told is that we're to have our expectations in terms of the amount of material that is about that is asked to be learned within a quarter. Also, which I don't know if we really have if that's being followed. Also having quizzes that don't count. That are non-graded, to give them some sort of feedback, so that the answers are given. They're being incentivized to show up. They're learning if they're able to keep up without being penalized if they're not getting it. There are lots of different these kind of tactics where they're being encouraged to participate and get the technique of participating in an online thing. And it's new for all of us.
And Mark, I just wanted to make another comment here, that empathic response, especially with somebody that we agree there is anxiety in the picture, it would be probably enough for a healthy student just to have reassurance. We're in this together. It is new for all of us. Even I am learning about it. I understand, and there are all these resources, and you can count on me. And if I were that student, I probably would feel so much calmer, because my professor has my back and is my ally and an advocate in this scary situation for me. And of course, if the person keeps going and keeps showing other conditions, then thank goodness that it can be escalated to other resources.
Can I say something about this? So this isn't directly responsive to the questions that we were asked, but I just think it might be worth mentioning. I'm actually surprised to hear from some of my students this quarter, and also third hand from students of my colleagues, that many students are finding that the remote instruction format is actually less anxiety producing. I guess for one thing, they don't have to show up in person, and so just not having to get on the bus and spend the travel time is helpful to a lot of people. But also I think a lot of them are finding that they can look at the information, they can look at their notes at the same time. They're kind of more able in some scenarios for some students to manage the discussion. And so I guess that may or may not be useful for the one case we're being asked to respond to right now. But
and you know what?
I just wanted to throw that out there.
And Jonathan, I'm totally with you. I have had the same observation. I have two students. They are from the same background. They are like twins. And one is totally unstructured and is flaunting and is overwhelmed. She has to go to part-time status, while the other says, I love it to be at home. I have so much support here, and it is so convenient for me. So it is fascinating how there are so many variables that play a role into it. But you are right that there are many students that are just flourishing in this environment right now.
All right, so and to answer your question about what we would do different, some of the resources on here, just to kind of take note of, whether it's the Office of Academic Support and Instructional Services, can be really useful in connecting students with first generation services, Raza Resource Centro and Documented Student Services, if that feels appropriate. And again, we do lots of referring and collaborating with these offices. Okay, so I'm thinking in the interest of time, we should go to the last one. What do you
That's good,
Rain?
Christine.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so a graduate student TA tells you that they received an online assignment from an undergraduate student that ended with a comment, "I don't know why I even bothered to do this assignment. Nothing matters anyway. There's no reason for me to be taking this class or even be on this earth." The graduate student then says to you, "I cannot deal with this right now. I just had to move yesterday because I was in a really bad relationship. I have no money left because I had to pay first and last month's rent on a new place while I'm still on the lease for my old place. I'm so stressed I cannot eat or sleep. This is all just too much." All right, so these are the questions, and I'll flip back to the scenario. Again, what would a supportive response possibly be for the undergraduate student in which the graduate student's safety is prioritized? So how do you respond to the graduate student in a way that prioritizes the undergraduate student's safety? What steps would be taken to address concerns about the undergraduate student? What would be the graduate student TA's involvement in addressing the concerns of the undergraduate student? And what resources could be recommended for the graduate student? Any thoughts?
I guess I sort of feel like, any concern about the undergraduate has risen above the level of the pay grade of the graduate student already. It's time to call the special forces. That's me. I would take, I guess my first reaction is I would try to take it off the plate of the graduate student immediately, and then deal with the graduate student's problems also.
Great, absolutely, absolutely. And this is one thing, it's really important to communicate to graduate students because they don't always know that this is not their responsibility and that they should be referring it to either the faculty member who's teaching the class or however the department has it set up. Sometimes they want it referred to the chair or to a particular administrator in the department. But it's really important for them to understand that they absolutely need to share it with whoever that designated person is in the department, but it's not their responsibility to be managing the response.
And this could also be a great opportunity to even provide a empathic statement to the graduate student, wow, this has got to be really overwhelming for you with everything that you're dealing with. And then to have this now, I'm sure that this is scary. And, I just want to reassure you, I'm taking this off of your plate. I'm going to be responding to this. And this is an emergency, so I need to get to this, but I want I hear the other things that you're saying, and I want to be able to provide you support as well.
So some of the referral resources to consider: Triton Concern Line, the Dean of Student Affairs at the College of the Undergraduate Student, referral to CAPS. This could be both for the undergrad and the grad student. Again, student health, as we talked about. Carrot SARC. This graduate student referenced this really bad relationship. We don't know what this really bad relationship is or what the actual dynamic is, but we can say, you don't have to give me any details about the nature of your relationship concerns, but I want you to know that this resource exists. OPHD, similar situation in terms of, as you all know, that if the student does share it with you, any identifying information that brings it into the category where it has to be reported, OPHD would be a resource. But even if they don't, you can still tell them, I don't know, you haven't given me any details, but I want you to know that this resource is available to you as well, if it's relevant. And again, it might not be. They might just be like, oh, we're just always yelling at each other, and it's not something where they might definitely want counseling and support around it, and we want to discern if it's kind of rises to the level of emotionally abusive or anything like that. But it's again, that's not your job. You don't have to figure that out. Graduate Division Hub Basic Needs. So this graduate student's told you that they're out of money. And we have a lot of graduate students who are using our basic needs resources and our food pantry. And student legal services. They've got a lease issue potentially where they're still on a lease with their ex-partner And that is actually one of the main things that our Student Legal Services does, is provide legal consultation on leases and getting out of leases if needed. All right.
You know, I think this is all geared towards, you know, what's happening during the quarter, but here we're in a COVID situation. We're heading towards summer. Students will not likely have the opportunity to move back home, or if they're foreign students, to go back with any security that they'll be able to come back. So there are really huge financial and financial pressures on the graduate students, which I'm most aware of now because that's the population that I'm teaching this quarter in a classroom level. And I would just like to have some resources where to steer them besides something besides, we'll call financial aid office. I'd like to have a name. I'd like to have, you know, I'd like to have something a little more pointed. Is there any recommendation? I will write to you, Christina, but I really understand this. But
one person that I count on in graduate studies is April Bjorson,
yeah.
And she is well connected and knows all the resources of the students, and she manages students in need, students of concern, and a good person to have. And like Christina stated, you know, Alison Satterlund, she's also always a wonderful resource. But usually I refer students to her when others had failed because she's very busy, as you can imagine. But she is a student center. Her doors are always open for the students.
Are there special people? Are there special people other than these two for foreign students?
Oh yes, there is Dulce Dorado. That would be another name. That woman is a mover and a shaker. If it is an international student, I tell you, skip the other ones. Dulce Dorado really knows all the resources, and we know that international students are having a challenging time right now, given all the boundaries issues internationally. So
I've also
one name.
I know that you asked for graduate students, but I just wanted to also suggest that in general, when I'm having a student that I'm really concerned about, besides just referring them to a resource, I will often refer them to the dean of whatever college that they're at. The dean of the college, dean of graduate students, which is what Christina had suggested and Raina had suggested, because the deans, you know, it's really incredible how much that they are invested for the students and how they're able to make phone calls to different departments or different faculty members and be able to be an advocate for students. They have a case manager that works with them for students of concern, and that case manager will follow up and help them to call resources and really give them kind of that hands-on support. So any of the deans are really wonderful to call.
And the new Dean of Graduate Division, Dean Jim Antony, has been amazing in terms of my experience of his advocacy for graduate students and his real interest in the holistic experience of being a graduate student, including the financial aspects, including what it means for people who are international graduate students or what it means for graduate students who are parents. He's very very aware and wants to be more aware and is really inviting to students to come talk to him so that he can also be addressing things, you know, to assist that particular student, but to be addressing things systemically as well.
He's another mover and shaker, but now I'm feeling very thrilled, as Christina was saying, about those grants that are coming, and also the Basic Needs Hub. They have funds for people that will need help with housing. They have temporary housing for transition if somebody's going to be homeless. And they have immense resources for food, because food, as we know, is at the core of what's going on right now. I get fascinated when I see the lines of cars waiting for a few boxes of food for hours. So as you can see, we have a plethora of resources. And just to begin to wrap it up, because we have run, unfortunately, out of time, I want you to know that CAPS is at your service. If there is no door or you don't have time to knock at a lot of doors, as director, don't hesitate to call me anytime. I will do that research for you. I will spoon feed you if I have to, because we are in this together, like they say, and we depend on you, and we want to make sure that we're here for you. So thank you very much, Christina, for sponsoring and facilitating this encounter for us, and all the professors, all the faculty that join us today.
My pleasure, and thank you. This has been very useful. And did you say it's being recorded and the faculty may able to access it? Great, perfect. Thank you, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you
too.
all.
Thank you all. Thank you, Irena,
Thank you.
Tiffany, and Christina.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.